It's Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. It's Christmas time. It's playoff time. And it's also time for the Knee Jerks podcast with Eno, Nick, and Big Al. I am the Big Al of the three-way. The three-way. How's that? We just call it a three-way? I don't. Oh God, shouldn't even go there.
Please don't do that.
All right, yeah, that's triumvirate. The trio.
There you go.
The band. How we just call ourselves the band. Anyway, I'm Al Beaton, longtime Detroit based blogger and podcaster. Joining me as always is the I guess I should go to the newest member of the band, and that would be Nick Milanovich. Nick, what's up?
Hey, things are going well here out in sunny Seattle. Actually, it's
sunny.
Pouring,
what?
It's pouring like crazy, but
and as always, my the partner in crime has been with me for this so many years, Greg Eno of the Greg Eno Substack. I was at the Out of Bounds Substack, I believe. So, Greg, what's up?
Yeah, please, thank you, Al, for mentioning that. Please go to my Substack and better yet, subscribe. I'm going to be letting you guys in on a little secret. If you go to gregeno.substack.com in a little while, maybe in another day or two, I'm going to run a contest, and I'm going to give everybody who subscribes, because right now it's free. If everybody who subscribes, just so I can grow my network, I'm going to be giving away a really nice, albeit gently read. This is true. This is not a neat. This is not a whose birthday is a gift. This is a real gift. A book about the history of the National Basketball Association. It's fascinating. It takes us back to the mid 1940s, and it's called the Tip Off. And I'm going to be giving that away to a subscriber. So I'm going to run that contest on Twitter. So please go there, subscribe, and you'll automatically get your name in the hat as I draw a name to give away that book. Basically, I come into if you do subscribe, I come into your inbox every week, sometimes twice a week.
Yes, this was a bonus week. There was two
bonus week, and bonus week last week too. We did a Jim Leland piece a little while ago, and then the other day I did a piece on how bad the Pistons are and comparing them to the days of yore when they won 16 games back in 1980. So please do that. And we've got no guests tonight. Just want to let everybody know we had 2 guests for you last show, but we're going to go guestless so we can have lots of time to get all of our thoughts in about the
we have a lot to talk about.
Array of topics that Al has on the agenda for tonight. But before we get to any of that, we're going to play a game that we did not play last time called Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro? Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I'll give Al and Nick a clue or 2 or 3 of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if those guys can guess that person within the first 2 clues, one of them will receive, in this case, a box set of BJ and the Bear. So you don't want to miss that one.
Yes. The Greg Evigan.
You know how many years I wanted a chimpanzee after that show?
That's right.
Well, we always
was it a chimpanzee or was it an orangutan? I can't remember.
No, the orangutan was the Clint Eastwood movies. That was
right.
Clyde. Yes,
that's true.
Yeah.
This person, guys, made his name in the world of football. He was born on this date in 1947. He is a former signal caller in the National Football League. He is from the West Coast, where he attended school, and was actually a Heisman Trophy winner in 1970.
Heisman Trophy winner in 1970. Oh, Jim Plunkett.
Very good. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Stanford, back when they were called the Indians.
Yep, because they beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl.
They did.
And Bull Schembechler had a heart attack in the run-up to the game. Yeah.
Good memory. He Plunkett was selected first overall by the Patriots in 71. And that franchise was a disaster. So he went to the 49ers for a couple of years. But really, it's funny. He was a late bloomer. He made his hay with the Raiders in his 30s. That's when he won 2 Super Bowls. Or maybe not 2. 1 Super Bowl. No, 2.
Yeah, I think he won 2.
Yeah, and he won 2 of them. And he was way more productive in his 30s than he was in his 20s. It was kind of a funny career. And I believe both of his parents were deaf, which was an unusual circumstance. And I think he's part Indian too. I think he's part Indian, I see Mexican American. He's got some Native American in him. Jim Plunkett, he's 76 today, so happy birthday, Mr. Plunkett. And BJ and the Bear box set on its way to southern Lower Michigan to Al.
Yeah, I'll put it on the shelf next to Every Which Way But Loose and and Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp. Okay.
Oh my God, Lancelot Link's.
You got Any Which Way You Can also, right?
There you go. Yeah.
You got to have the pair.
Oh, the great Mel Tillis.
We're not on monkey show references here. Yeah. And the monkeys. Here we go. Yeah, the monkeys as well. God, we're ready to go.
We got to get Bedtime with Bonzo in there. Too.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Bedtime for Bonzo. These are deep cuts.
These are deep cuts.
Yeah. All right. I think we're about ready to start talking some sports, are we not? With that, with Greg's game all set. Okay. We have a lot to touch on. I mean, since we had a long hiatus, a lot of stuff went down that we would least like to touch on. Since our last show was pretty much mostly interviews of a little bit of Lions, but we do have there's a little bit of Tigers talk we can touch on. Jim Leland is voted into the Hall of Fame. AJ Hinch has a long-term extension, and we never got to talk about Matt Shepard being fired. Got the ziggy, as we like to say in the show, from the TV broadcast booth. The Red Wings made a huge signing. Started getting Patrick Kane, who's going to hit the ice with them, I believe, on Thursday. We have Greg wrote about the Pistons. We have a lot to talk. I don't know if we're going to get to it all, but the Pistons are historically bad, and the analogy he made to the late '70s Pistons was spot on. And the differences and the similarities. College football is in chaos. But first off, let's start with the Detroit Lions, who I don't know if I've seen a fan base so in a tizzy over a team that's 9-3. And almost 100% lock to make the playoffs. Yet here we are. Since we last spoke, guys, the Lions beat the Saints on Sunday, 33-28, in a road game, a game where they were up 21-0. Game got close. Lions held on. They never gave up the lead, but it was a little tougher game than people thought it might be. That's a bounce back from I won't say bad, it was a tough 29-22 loss to the Packers on Thanksgiving Day. That loss isn't looking quite so bad now because the Packers are on a late season tear, much like the Lions were last year. The Packers are up to 6-6 now, tied with the Vikings. But still, Lions are third overall in the NFC. They are 9-3, 8-2 in their last 10. They are 4-1 in their last 5, and those last 5 games have this fan base like, oh my God, what's going on here? But I guess the question is, how concerned should we be over the performance of the last, especially 4 games? Some of the stats that have popped up. Point differential in those 4 games is just +6. Defense has given up an average of 30 points a game. The defense is exposed, especially against the pass. The pass rush has pretty much disappeared. There's a lot of people online right now who are very unhappy with Aaron Glenn. If you went into certain parts of the internet after the game, a game they won, a game they actually took victory formation in, and people screaming to fire Aaron Glenn. I mean, that's how insane this fan base is right now. That's something that's not, if it happens, it won't happen until the end of the season anyway. But anyway, right now, I'm starting to see comparisons to the 2022 Vikings, who were 13-4 last year, but they had an overall season point differential of -3, which there were 2 different things here. So I'll start with you, Greg. The Lions are 4-1 in their last 5 games. They have kind of struggled in the last 4. They are 3-1 in those games. How concerned should we be, if we should be concerned at all?
Well, this is the NFL. These are the fans of the NFL. Believe me, every team has this. Whether you're 9-3, 3-9, it doesn't matter. Every team's Twitter has this kind of thing. My joke I've made before is that every Monday morning, 16 teams fan bases want their coach fired. The following Monday, the other 16 team fan bases want the same thing. That's just the way it is. I mean, they want a coordinator fired. They want the GM fired. Somebody's got to go. I mean, every week in the NFL. In Jets land, they want Salah gone. They want they don't want to see any more of Zach Wilson anymore. They don't want just a few weeks ago the Bears fans didn't want to see any more of Justin Fields. And then he started to kind of ingratiate
Oh,
himself.
I looked up. If you look online, there was rumblings of people getting upset with Jared Goff after he had 2 mediocre games.
The Bears don't want their coach anymore. And nobody. There was a fire. Dennis Allen was going around after the Lions beat the, who the hell did he play on Sunday? Drawing a blank.
Saints.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the Saints Twitter wants to fire Dennis Allen. I mean, that's just the way it is in the NFL. Fans are, I think Nick made a comment on Twitter about, the irrationality of fans, and it's true. But taking all that out of the equation, just actually talking football, how concerned should we be? Concerned. I mean, they always say, well, it's how you play in December and what kind of momentum you have going into the playoffs. But the concern that I have about the Lions pass or Lions defense is their pass defense, and it doesn't look fixable. That's the thing. It doesn't look fixable by now. I mean, when you're 13 weeks into a season, and it doesn't look like whatever they're doing is going to be corrected. And when I say what I mean that needs to be corrected is that they are being carved up by premier quarterbacks. Now they can beat the subpar quarterbacks in the NFL, but the really good ones, and let's face it, when you get to the playoffs, that's all you face are really good quarterbacks week after week. That's who carves them up. What they did against the Chargers, for example, I think they allowed touchdowns on 5 consecutive drives. And a lot of that was Justin Herbert doing his thing. Fields had his moments against the Lions, of course, before Thanksgiving. Jordan Love, who's actually looking really good right now. Not just against the Lions, but against the rest of the league. He carved them up. And the Saints, Carr, even before he got knocked out of the game, I think they had touchdowns on 3 out of 4 drives or something.
Yeah, did you notice the drop? Yeah, the drop off from Carr to Jameis Winston.
Right.
Holy shit. That was it was
so palpable. I just don't know. I don't know where all of a sudden I don't know where the panacea is going to come from. I don't know where the fix is going to come from. All of a sudden these guys are going to get better in the next 4 or 5 weeks heading into the playoffs. Let's face it, they are going to make the playoffs. I mean, let's be real about that. But so I mean, it's right to be concerned for sure. The Lions seem to have to score 30 plus points a game to win, and that doesn't always happen in the playoffs. So I just don't. I wonder about if they go up against a Hurts or San Francisco's quarterback or Prescott. I wonder, if they're going to be able to hold up.
Yep. Yeah, and it is worth noting, though, that you just mentioned Hurts in Philadelphia. They just got destroyed by the Niners on Sunday.
Right.
Again, that's the
and by the way, the Eagles fans want their coordinator fired.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're 10-2.
Yeah, and losing to the other Super Bowl favorite in the damn NFC. Nick, I feel like I'm in the McLaughlin groove. Nick, your take.
You're going to have to give us like all colorful intros, right?
Yeah, really.
I used to remember him saying more Tony Tooney. But, I kind of agree with Greg in you kind of know their defense was going to be carved up by good quarterbacks. I don't think that's changed at all. And you could argue, okay, well, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes and whatever. It's kind of hard to interpret anything from the beginning of the season because all teams are really trying to figure themselves out. And, it's kind of like as the season progresses, what are you seeing? And I'm seeing the same thing too. A fairly capable quarterback could possibly beat them. The one thing that their anecdote to that is if their offense plays well.
Bingo.
Now, if Jared Goff brain farts and, throws 3 interceptions in a game, they may be able to overcome Chicago. They would never overcome the Eagles. They would never overcome the 49ers. I can't see it because they have this weird rhythm in their games. For some reason, they come out insanely good in the very beginning. Like they scored 21 points off the bat off of the Saints. And it wasn't the first time. They scored like a crazy number of points in the first quarter, but they can barely survive the second and third quarters and then kind of wake back up in the fourth quarter. And that's kind of been their rhythm for most of their games.
Well, let me ask you this, Dick. Do you think that is a strategy of Ben Johnson's, that they're up big, they figure now we want to start bleeding clock?
But
it seems early to do that, but that's you mentioned this seems to be a trend.
It is a trend, and I don't know why. I don't know. I don't think it's like a coaching strategy.
Mm-hmm. It
might be the players getting kind of a little bit complacent. Maybe then the coaches react and then start getting a little more conservative.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't know what the deal is with the third quarter, because they look, as good as University of Michigan comes out in the third quarter. The Lions come out bad in the third quarter for some reason. And the other team catches up, and then they're like, holy shit, we better wake up again and start fighting. I don't know if it's just the kind of the rhythm or the kind of like this swaying of the confidence among a bunch of young players. But they have that weird rhythm, and the thing that saved them has been their offense. Jared Goff against the Chargers, drove them down the field when they needed to. They did smart clock management.
We saw that again on Sunday, where he made two clutch third and long conversions on that last drive where it allowed them to run out the clock. So I think you're onto something where this it's at this point, especially it was announced tonight that Lee McNeil, their best interior defensive lineman, just went on the injured list. The injured list for 4. He's going to be gone for at least 4 games. And he is their best interior defensive lineman, period, let alone their best interior pass rusher. So a injury-racked defense, which I think people tend to forget. This defense has been absolutely raked over the coals with injuries. They're missing they're 2 of the top free agents they signed were supposed to be starters. They both got knocked out early in the season. They're missing a linebacker right now. They're one of their top linebackers on Anzalone right now. He missed the last game. McNeil is out. They're missing probably their second best pass rusher in James Houston. They're playing like their number 2 cornerback right now was Jerry Jacobs, who was an undrafted free agent. He's not supposed to be playing 90% of the snaps, but because of their shape of the defensive backfield injury-wise, he is. So, I mean, there are some mitigating circumstances here. But Greg, are you with Nick thinking that this is completely on the shoulders of the offense at this point? Now, it's up to them to take them the rest of the way?
Yeah, it seems to be that way.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that kind of point that out. One of them, and I think we may have talked about this after the Chargers game, was in the Chargers game. The clock management that Dan Campbell had was such that he was not going to give the ball back to the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Now, he didn't say it, but it was implied, and I think everybody was thinking it was like the elephant in the room, that the reason why he didn't want to give the ball back to Herbert was because Herbert was carving them up. And they, like I said, I think 5 straight possessions ended with touchdowns, and largely on the arm of Herbert. So he didn't have to say. Everybody knew why he didn't want to give the ball back. Okay, so that was the first thing, the first clue. The second one was the Lions won the game on Sunday against the Saints because why? Because they made crucial third downs and they were able to, as you say, go into victory formation by once again not giving the ball back to the Saints when the Saints were within a touchdown's drive away of the lead. Yeah. So those are 2 instances where the offense did save their bacon. The offense came through against the Chargers and got crucial first downs that they needed to get, and they did so against the Saints both on the road and both with Jared Goff and his receivers making fantastic plays, clutch plays, which we have not, we haven't been used to seeing Lions teams make, of course. So that's those instances right there are 2 examples of why this whole notion of the Lions are going to win or die on their offense is true. Now, they could surprise us and they could play out of their minds in a playoff game and shut a team down. They're going to get a home game. The goal, of course, for them is to finish in one of the top 2 seeds so they can get a first round bye. I mean, that's what you'd like to have. It gives you an extra week to get guys healthy. And who wants to have to win an extra game? And who wants to win any more games than they have to get to the Super Bowl? So you get a first round bye, and then you're, of course, guaranteed a home playoff game, at least one. So the goal is number 2. So they're right now they're tied with the 49ers in that regard. But the thing is that, whether they play at home or on the road, as we saw against, with Jordan Love and Thanksgiving, it doesn't matter where they play. Their scheme, and I don't know what it is. If it's, you mentioned Aaron Glenn on the hot seat, but I don't know if it's the talent he has or if he's not scheming properly. Nick mentioned the third quarter. That's been a concern. But I don't, whatever it is, receivers are too open, whatever the case may be. Yeah.
And it's, and you think they would, they could scheme a way somehow to keep Aiden Hutchinson from not being double and triple teamed, because he's pretty much disappeared over the past 4 or 5 games. And I think it's mostly because there's not a threat on the other side that they don't need the double. So, and I guess the other, the sky is falling, people are pointing at is the schedule. 6 weeks ago, people were looking at the schedule saying, "Oh, the Lions just got a cakewalk to the playoffs," and now all of a sudden, the Broncos are 6-6 and in a hunt for a wild card. You got 2 games against the Vikings. The last 2 of the 3 games are against the Vikings, who are 6-6 and fighting for the wild card. They got to go to Dallas, who are 9-3, and then you have the Bears, who played the Lions awful tough, and they play them on the road this Sunday. It'll be cold. It'll be outdoors, which usually doesn't play in Jared Goff's favor. He's not known as a cold weather quarterback. Are you concerned about the upcoming schedule, Nick, or are we just, or is it more like this? Let them play. We'll see where the cards fall.
I think those teams, like maybe even with Chicago now, it seems like the last couple of years they've even had a tough time with Chicago in more than one time, and not just this year, but last year and the year before. So I think
that could be the mobile quarterback thing. That's also another elephant in the room. Right.
And honestly, those last few Lions games could go any way. It depends on what Dallas team shows up. It depends on what Denver team shows up. The Vikings, who knows? Maybe they split with the Vikings.
Yeah, and the other thing to factor in, we don't know. 5 weeks from now, the Vikings could have played themselves out of it, and that they may have nothing to play for, and the Lions may be able to just march right through them and win an easy game. But again, that's why I don't like playing the schedule game that much, like some people do, because it's such a fluid thing. And Greg brought up earlier, the NFL, there's no easy wins, and you should not be upset at a close win, especially on the road in the NFL. It's that hard to win games. But let me ask you this, Nick. I'll stay with you. Despite they're not playing well, they're 3-1 in these games. So it's not like we're talking about the Lions of 2.5 years ago that were like 0-10.
I would say that good teams will find a way to win, and it's going to look different every week.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous for us to think they're going to just kind of like roll over every team. We got this great offense. It's going to be, on its game every single week. No, they're going to have, they're human beings. Goff is going to have brain farts and throw interceptions, but he's also going to do very well. They don't defeat themselves, honestly. They haven't done that, but I'm going to keep pounding this drum. They need a damn kicker. They need a kicker. I know their strategy has to be affected by the fact that they have a very short range kicker.
Yeah. So, when his range is probably 45 at best, anything past that seems to be a coin flip, and less than a coin flip, honestly.
Right, and then you hit 50, it's kind of a big drop off whether he's going to make it or not.
Yeah.
I said this. I think it was after the Chargers. Game that what do you call it? Dan Campbell decided to punt instead of going for a long field goal. Because his kicker can't make it.
Yeah.
And he needed the points. I mean, this was like a back and forth. they score to one touchdown, we score one touchdown. It's just back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it is interesting to note, though, Greg, that Dan Campbell did seem to be, especially I think the last couple games, like especially against the Saints, he really didn't. I don't know if he was ever in a position to really go be aggressive on fourth downs, but when he's been taking the points a little more often now when it comes to when he's deeper in opponent territory earlier in games. And I'm wondering if that horrible fake punt call made him like scared him straight a little bit. That horrible fake punt in the Green Bay game, which was that was probably I mean I'm a fan of his aggressiveness.
Yeah.
But that call there is like that crossed the line into
yeah.
I don't want to say stupidity, but hubris maybe. Maybe he was starting to get a little full of himself on these fourth down calls because they seem to have toned them down a little bit over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's the one time, I think the one occasion where they could have done it in New Orleans was they actually lined up like they were going to go for it.
Yes, that's right.
It was just
trying to draw them
an
off.
attempt, right? And
Mhm.
so they rightly kicked a field goal there as well.
Mhm.
The fake punt was awful, just
Yeah.
absolutely awful. The Lions had gotten a little bit of momentum back. They had scored right out of the intermission, first drive of the third quarter. Starting to feel a little bit of a rhythm, even though they stumbled a little bit, but they still were kind of zeroing in on the Packers, and then they just completely put them behind the eight ball again. They gave up a touchdown in the subsequent possession to Green Bay, and it was really a killer. And and he said he admitted it. He didn't. The one thing about Campbell, you have to admire. He doesn't double down usually.
Mhm.
And he said after the game, look, that was on me. That was not. I don't know what words he used, but he admitted it was a bad call.
Yeah, kind of like the same thing he said after the Vikings game when he attempted that long field goal that ended up backfiring because it made a one-score game.
Right.
When he would have been,
right.
it was like 4th and 3 if he had gone for it, got the first down, the game's over.
Right.
So, he seems to learn from his mistakes, but he's still every coach does though. Every coach still, as good as some of these guys are with clock management and handling their timeouts, as Nick said, brain farts happen even with coaches.
Yeah, and it's funny because my thing about decisions like that, when you're so quick to contradict yourself after the game and say, and not even attempt to defend it, and just so quickly say, look, bad call. It makes you wonder how that decision got made to begin with. If it was so cut and dry after the game, and this is not a hindsight is 2020 thing. Believe me, that was a bad call from the get-go. If they made it the first time, it was a bad call.
Yeah.
But he made no bones about it that was not the right thing to do. So it makes you wonder how a decision like that does get made. I mean, ultimately, he's the one that makes the final decision. I don't know if anybody's in his ear saying, "Dan, maybe not now. Maybe let's not." We got a little bit of momentum here. Let's punt. Let's live it to fight another day. Well, let's see if the defense can get another stop, get the ball back. But to give the defense, which at that time had not been doing anything to slow down Jordan Love, much less stop him, then to give him a short field. I think they were like within the 25 or 30 yard line. It just was not, and it just sucked whatever momentum they were able to regain out of the break. It just sucked it right back to Green Bay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I could see those kinds of decisions. You're in the heat of the moment in a tight game. It's different if we're sitting at home and calm or get a chance to think about it a little bit and digest. And I mean, honestly, it happens. Like, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
We can't say the three of us haven't felt that way afterwards after a decision. And
sure.
So it doesn't surprise me. So, but
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Anything
no.
else
I was
you
just
wanted to
thinking, like, as long as your good decisions outweigh,
Yeah, exactly.
get you ahead, and compensate for your bad decisions. I mean,
and his decision making has them at 9-3. So he's doing something right, and I think that's a thing. I think some of this fan base is forgetting that they are 9-3. They have a 3-game lead in the division. 3 games with 5 to play. I mean, that's I mean, it's not, right now I looked up the stats today as I put in the show notes. They are currently a 97% odd. The odds are 97% in their favor that they're going to make the playoffs. They're at 78% that they'll win the division. And winning the division means at least one home playoff game. And as I said earlier, a 3-game lead to 5 play gives them a magic number of 3, which is any combination of 3 Lions wins and or Vikings Packers losses. Lions have locked up a playoff spot. I mean, the Lions could, best case scenario, the Lions could be lock up a playoff spot by next week. And I think people kind of forget about that. And Greg still nailed it at the start of this discussion that, it's the NFL. I mean, good teams lose games all the time. Hell, we saw it last night with Jacksonville was like a 9-point favorite against Cincinnati, lost in overtime. Was it Jake Browning?
Yeah.
Who had never started a game in the NFL in his life.
Yeah.
Was like 30 for 35, 300 plus yards and a couple touchdowns.
He pulled a Matt Flynn.
Exactly. Because it's the NFL. These, even the bad teams have played good. How many times did we see the Lions do that, guys? Where the Lions were awful and they beat a good team. It happens every year. Yeah. So, I'm not in this anywhere near as sky is falling stuff. I think we all agree there's room for concern, specifically on the defense. But the way to counter this is just to lean on that offense. And this offense is entirely capable of just dominating time possession. We've seen that a few times this year, like in the Raiders game. The only thing that kept that game as close as it was a couple of stupid turnovers. But I don't know about you, Greg, but I'm enjoying the ride, and I'm not going to let. I mean, we're both of us. We've been fans since the 70s, and we've seen a lot of awful football. So I'm not going to. I've gotten to the point with the Lions that I'm enjoying this for what it is, something we've rarely ever seen in this town. And I'm not going to let fears of what could happen ruin what has been a very enjoyable season to watch so far.
Well, I think what contributes to this kind of take is that the NFL is renowned for teams bobbing to the surface, having really good seasons and never being heard from again.
Yeah,
and you want to, you just look at the Bengals, which just 2 years ago were in the Super Bowl. Okay.
Yep.
And now are struggling. Of course, they lost their quarterback. Right? That doesn't help. But and the Rams, the year after they won the Super Bowl in 2022, nosedived. And so fans, they know that. They know that you success can be fleeting. And it's not like other sports where you can maybe go on a run like the Houston Astros have done in baseball and other teams in other sports where they're always good and they're good. And, in the NFL, there's only literally a handful of teams that are good year in and year out. But the thing that I would say though, to those fans, and they're right to think that way, because it is true that just because you're good one year doesn't mean you're good the next. But the thing I think that fans in Detroit should take some solace in is that the core of their team, now whether they can keep them together 2 or 3 years from now, I don't know. But the core of their team is young.
Yeah.
Very, very young. I look at the Lions as a team whose window is opening and that they should be good for several years in a row. It doesn't mean they're going to go 12-5 every year, but they should be good for several years in a row. And I know that's not guaranteed. I get it. But they have, to me, enough good young players, at least on the offensive side of the football, to make me think that this is a group that's going to be around and cause some damage for a while. Now, this has been going on too, by the way. We're talking about a team that is, 8-2 plus 9, 17-5. So this is a 22-game run now.
Yeah,
a really good football. So it's not like we're only talking about a 9-3 year.
Right.
We're talking about the last 10 games of last year and the 12. So that's 22 games, a pretty decent sample size. You go 17-5. I don't care who you are. I mean, that is not easy to do in the NFL.
Yeah.
So people have to understand that. That's why I think to me, that's where I see the window of this team opening. Whereas a team like the Rams, for example, or the Packers back in the 3 or 4 years ago when they were starting to get older and just weren't as dominant. Even I think we're even seeing some chinks in the armor of the Chiefs.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not going to write them off and say the Chiefs stink, but I don't think that. I think they've got a lot of question marks. Those fans have got to be probably a little bit nervous too, because there's defending champs, but they're looking really mortal lately. So but I think that's where it comes from, Al, is that fans know that success in the NFL is not to be taken for granted.
Right.
So if you've got a team that's 9-3, this you feel like this is your best shot as a fan to see your team go all the way, and they get very protective of that because there's no guarantee that next year the Lions will be 9-3 again.
Yeah. I guess that's a good point. With the vast majority of the core of this team are still they're early on in their rookie contracts for the most part. A lot of these guys like Sewell, I don't think is up for he was not up for renewal till 2024, for example. Amon-Ra like 2025. I think the only core player who they have to make a decision on, big money wise, will be Taylor Decker, their left tackle. And the thing is, though, I believe he's like 30, 31 now. The thing of Decker, though, is they essentially already have his replacement. He's just playing right tackle right now in Sewell. So, that guy's going to be an all-pro for the next decade. He's going to, but that's the thing, though. They have a lot of cap space. They have a lot of guys on cheap contracts. I think the only guy they're going to have to be sure to extend probably this year will be Goff, because you don't want your starting quarterback going into a season as a lame duck. Goff's going to get extended. It's just a matter of how much money he's going to make. Is it going to be reasonable money or stupid money? Probably somewhere in between, if you ask me. But that is a great point with this team, and that's the difference. Like, I think the last good team that we kind of compared this to was the 2014 Lions. That had really much kind of the opposite of this one, that they had a dominant defense and a mediocre offense at best. But the difference with that team was they had 3 of the core players on absolutely monster rookie contracts, and they ultimately only kept one of them, in Matthew Stafford. So, but where you fall on all this, Nick? Are you buying into this is the opening of a window, or should they have gone all in at the trade deadline and tried to beef up that defense? Because, as Greg said, sometimes the window closes as quickly as it opens.
I don't know. I think it could. I don't know what's going to happen next year. They'll probably be given a tougher schedule to begin with. Yeah. And so if they don't up their game for next year, they will look like they regress. At least their record might. I do think, and we've touched on this conversation before, if Brad Holmes keeps drafting the way he does, he can replace expensive veterans with really talented young guys.
Like he did with Laporta, for example.
Yep, exactly.
Right. I mean, I remember when they got rid of Hawkinson, everybody was like, what the hell are these guys doing? But holy shit.
Laporta, they replaced him with a younger George Kittle, for Christ's sake, which is amazing.
It's, I mean, he was fabulous. Every catch he made just basically bailed him out.
Yeah, they don't win Sunday without Laporta, period. He was their best. He was the best player in the field that day on Sunday.
And so, they could have a long window if they keep, bringing in talent and, replacing talent versus, just trying to hold on to a lot of players who have become veterans and then have become really expensive. And then, most of your money's going to a handful of guys and you can't give us a supporting cast for them. Yeah, but exactly. It doesn't look like they're doing that now. I mean, I think they're approaching it smart. I don't necessarily say they're going to be, they're not going to continue just growing without any setbacks. It may take a few years before. I don't think they're going to see the Super Bowl this year. I think there are better teams than them in the NFC alone. But who knows? Yeah. One bad game by the 49ers, or
look what happened to the 49ers before them. Injuries. What happened to the Niners last year where they ended up, where they lost all their quarterbacks. Shit happens in the NFL.
Yeah. So who the hell knows what could happen between now and the end of the season?
Exactly. And that's, I guess that's what gets me upset, because not upset, but just like kind of drives me batty, because I made the mistake of turning on the local sports talk radio station here while I was having dinner. I don't listen to them very much, but I figured, the McNeil stuff, we're going to do the podcast, get the, see what's going on. And of course, they start bringing up the hype of McNeil, especially with McNeil being on the IR, all of a sudden you start hearing, oh boy, things are getting a little dicey with the Lions. What do you think? They start bringing up the worst case hypotheticals. I think that's what drives me nuts about this, at least sports talk radio in most towns. Detroit's bad for it, is that discussions ultimately turn into worst case scenarios, and that brings out the worst in fans, where they're saying, the sky is falling shit, which just drives me nuts. I mean, yeah, we're all in agreement. This team is probably not a Super Bowl team, at least not yet. And we knew that when they were just rampaging through the league in the first quarter of the year. There are issues that were kind of patched over, and now the injuries are starting to, they're spraying a little bit at the seams at spot. But this is still a very good team. They're not a great team, but they're a very good team. And I'm enjoying the hell out of this season. I mean, we've had Greg and I have been doing this podcast for far too long. We were both young men when we started this podcast, and there's been too many seasons where we're losing interest. We've lost interest in this damn team, 6 games, 4, 5, 6 games into the year. And we're already talking about the draft or who's going to get fired or, what's going to happen in the offseason. And the season's not even halfway over with. Now we're talking about a team that's almost a lock for the playoffs and is playing some extremely entertaining football. And I am, I'm not going to sit here and worry about worst case scenarios of a team that's 9-3. I mean, could they lose to the Bears? Sure, of course they would. But I am confident that they have a very good coaching staff. They have a very good front office. They have a very good roster, and they're not gonna win out. But I bet you they end up like 3-2, which is more than enough to get them a home game. If they go 3-2, they win a division. They're going to have a home playoff game, and 12 wins may be more than enough to give them a number 2 seed. Might even give them a number 1 seed, because we don't know what could happen with some of these teams. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just Greg and I can be as negative as we've done it on this show, but I am not at the point where I'm going to get super negative over a team that's playing some very entertaining football.
Well, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to make a couple quick points. Number one is, NFL season is 17 games. That's not much.
Yeah.
So every win counts.
Yeah. Unlike the SEC, this really does mean more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, whereas I look at baseball, hockey, and basketball, there are a lot of games. You go on a couple game losing streak, it's kind of like, meh, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really, really long season.
Yeah.
And I had another point, which I totally forgot.
Well, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, as we need to kind of start wrapping up our Lions discussion anyway. So, but Greg, anything we wanted to add about the sky is falling, the Chicken Littles, or where this team is headed? You know what I mean.
The thing that we've criticized this team about in many recent years has been their inability to finish games. It was always about, they'll figure out a way to lose this one. Same old Lions. So they'll figure out a way to, how are they going to blow this one? Okay. Well, they haven't really think about it. When you really think about the games that they've lost, the 3 games that they've lost, Seattle, the Ravens, and Green Bay.
And 1 second, all possible to probable playoff teams.
Yeah, and it really wasn't. None of those 3 losses were ever a case of the Lions blew it. Okay, they didn't come from ahead and lose. They got blown out by Baltimore. They lost a seesaw affair to the Seahawks, and they were always chasing the Packers. They couldn't. Okay, so it was never. They have not lost any games. They've only lost 3. The 3 that they've lost have not been. Oh, they blew it. Yeah. Conversely, though, there have been games where you thought they might blow it in the past, i.e. the Chargers, i.e. the Bears, i.e. The Saints, and either come from ahead and lose, or they looked dead in the water against the Bears. They look like they just laid an egg, and then they woke up in the fourth quarter. But there hasn't really been a game where you can say, gosh darn it, there they go again.
Mhm.
If anything, they've I think completely have changed that narrative. I don't know about you. When I was watching the game Sunday,
Mhm.
both of those crucial third down plays, the one to Laporta, which was in a tight window, and the one to Reynolds, which was actually kind of low, but he made a good catch.
Yeah.
And Goff was
He got
surrounded
drilled
by
on that ball.
pressure.
He got hit hard.
Yeah, and both of those instances, I was pretty confident that the Lions were going to make the first down.
Yeah.
That started way back last January when they beat Green Bay in Green Bay. They got that
Mhm.
crucial third down conversion, I think, or even fourth down conversion to
Yeah.
seal
Yeah,
that.
it was it was a fourth down play against Green Bay.
So
Yeah.
they are closing games out, and they're taking victory formations. They're not in the past. Al, you mentioned how the Lions would come up with an upset. That's true. And a lot of times in those upsets, though, how many times did we have to sweat it out while the other team had the football at the end of the game?
Mhm.
And we didn't. There was no victory formation. The Lions,
Yeah.
if they ever won the game, it was because the time ran out, or whatever. It was rarely a victory formation scenario.
Right.
All their wins now has been because. Well, all their wins, but the close wins, have been because the offense has finished the game by staying on the field and not giving the ball back and going in victory formation. And that's what good football teams do.
Mhm.
And that's what they did Sunday against the Saints. If they don't convert either of those 2 third downs,
Yep.
the Saints have a lot of time left. And the way that was going, even with Winston at quarterback, you never knew.
Yeah, like I almost had I know there was no one to blame, but when that tipped pass that had interception written all over it,
right,
and it gets tipped and lands in the damn Saints. A few years ago, that's like, oh my God, the Lions are going to lose this game, because how many times have we seen something like that before? No,
they're not committing those stupid. They're not committing those stupid after the whistle penalties. No stupid personal fouls that extend drives. That roughing the passer call that knocked Carr out of the game. I thought it was questionable. Dean Blandino said no, and absolutely not questionable. You can't drive the quarterback to the ground with your full weight. You've got to make some effort to break free from him. So then I watched it again, and he was right.
But you could also make the argument that was a game-winning play,
right?
Because without Carr, say what you will about Carr, he is a legitimate starting quarterback.
Yeah,
and Winston was making some pretty awful decisions, which is not was obvious that he's not the same type of quarterback. But the thing is, though, that hit that knocked Carr out of the game was a legal hit 5 years ago. That would have been just a highlight reel hit. That's the sort of thing we would have saw in highlight, on NFL highlight films, back in the day. With John Facenda talking about how hard he's being hit, and on frozen tundras, kind of, you know what I mean? Well, then again, on those old highlight films, they used to play, funny music as guys were staggering around the field after a concussion. So, that's just how things have changed. I as soon as I saw the replay, I go, I can see why they called it. But it wasn't dirty. It wasn't. It was just a super hard hit.
No, it wasn't dirty.
It was not dirty. So,
but
I
do remember what I wanted to say. Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
I did. It's Greg pretty much already said it, but the thing we don't see with the Lions is the same old Lions. All the dumb, stupid after the whistle penalties, the freak tips, and or late interception or something else dumb, or Leonard Thompson running down the field wide open and dropping it in the end zone at the end. That kind of thing. And a few other guys too, for that matter. But
no, just to go on this aside, I discovered a YouTube channel that he finds old TV broadcasts of football game, of NFL football games, and he cleans them up, electronically. So they're not nearly as blurry as he would, because how they used to film these games with a potato essentially. And it's funny you bring up Leonard Thompson, because I was going through his playlist of the things he's clicked up, and one of the games he had cleaned up was one of Leonard Thompson's best games as a Lion, where it was a Saturday afternoon game, late, and I think it was like 78. Gary Danielson was the quarterback.
Oh, the Gary Danielson game.
And Danielson threw for 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And like 3 of them were to Leonard Thompson in the first half.
Right.
And as I'm watching that, and I was, kind of scrubbing through, and I was kind of, I go, I'm laying there, go, I remember watching that game live. I remember in my family's living room, in front of the 25-inch console color TV, watching that game. And all of a sudden, all the memories came rushing back because that was probably the best game of Leonard Thompson's career and the best game of Gary Danielson's career. And it was one of those games where I would be watching the Lions and they were just destroying. I remember it was the Packers, and I'm like, boy, they might be onto something here. And they were never onto something, even after performances like that. But again, that just goes for the NFL's been like that forever.
Mm-hmm.
Bad to mediocre teams sometimes play great games. And that was a prime example of that, of the Lions, dropping a 40 bomb on the Packers, on a Saturday afternoon in December of 1978, and they were still a bad team, but they had a great game that day. That's the NFL in a nutshell. And I do think that too many fans who watch college football on Saturdays think good teams should always be like Michigan and win every game by 3 scores. And that just doesn't happen in the NFL.
No. Heck, it doesn't always happen in college. Michigan's game last week wasn't that much of a blowout. So
not even. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But if you think about it, even last year, the very last game of the season, the Lions played when they went into Lambeau Field and playing the Packers. And the Packers, if they win, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Lions had nothing to play for, but they gave everybody the middle finger, saying, "We're gonna go out here and win this game, even though it doesn't matter anymore."
If we can't win, they're not winning either. Essentially, is what they
that's right.
Win the game. Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, just because the Packers may have been a better team, they may have had an experienced quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, doesn't mean that very game they're going to win.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, as we get ready to move on to another topic, anything you'd like to put a bow on this discussion, Greg, or anything we've missed?
No, just everybody needs to just calm down, and they'll probably win in Chicago, and then they'll probably finish with 12 wins, and that should be good enough. They probably should be good enough to get a first round bye.
Yeah, exactly, and that's I wanted a home playoff game and hopefully a playoff win. Everything other than that, I think it's like found money, if you ask me.
Right.
And then next year, that's when I'm going to want to see more, especially if they continue to draft well, as Nick said, and I think that's the one thing this team really has shown, the front office, is that they know how to draft. And after all, and that's something I guess we're talking about really quick before we move on, Nick, is you mentioned how well this team draft. The top 4 picks are all heavy contributors to this team. And this is a draft that got raked over the coals by people who thought they knew what they were talking about.
Well, it's true. I mean, you remember with Gibbs when the Lions traded down and then oh my God, they drafted a running back. This is not, it's too much. It costs too much to get a running back now. They could always got it cheaper. Like, he's paying off for them.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at like all the first round draft picks, but I'm sure not all of them are paying off for their teams.
I don't think any team in the league probably has their top 4 picks contributing as much as the Lions do, between the Lions who have Gibbs, Campbell, Laporta, and why am I drawing a blank on the defensive back?
Is that Branch?
Branch, yes, Brian Branch. I mean, all 4 of those guys are starters. They're all playing significant minutes, or at the very least, Gibbs is sharing time as a starter. And, these are all 4 guys who are obviously going to be long-term cornerstones for this franchise. And if the Lions continue to draft that well, I am concerned in the least that they're going to be better next year, because I'm sure they'll be able to get some decent defensive guys in the draft. They've shown it, that they can get productive defensive players late in the draft. I mean, Malcolm Rodriguez was a starter last year in defense. Now he's a 3-way player, as I saw the other day. Now he's a star in special teams. He's playing fullback on offense, and he's in part of the linebacker rotation. That's a hell of a get from a 6th round draft pick.
Well, don't forget that the draft is it's not just guys like Gibbs and it's all these lesser round guys. I think every draft pick that Holmes has made
is on
in
the roster.
2021 is on the, which is absolutely unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. And I mean, that's where the hay is made. And don't underestimate the appeal of the Lions now as a free agent destination spot.
Yeah, good point.
Next year, when it comes to if they want to get some help outside the organization to help with the pass rush or help with the secondary, whatever, or linebacker, wherever they want to target, they've created now. I think they've turned themselves into a destination landing spot for for upper tier free agents that where they may not have been able to do that. I know money talks, and a lot of times players just go to where the money is. I understand that, but there are a lot of players I think where if push comes to shove, may choose if the money is similar, they may choose the Lions because of what's being built here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. With that, we spent about almost an hour talking Lions, so we got a lot to cover, guys. So let's move on to I guess the other team in this town that is actually playing very good right now and is actually in a playoff spot if the season ended today, and that would be the Detroit Red Wings. But they are making news not because they are playing well. I mean, they are playing well. They're actually winning again tonight. They're up 2-0 in the first period over Buffalo. They're sitting in a playoff spot at 13-7-3. That's 29 points. 29 points is tied for the fourth best record in the Eastern Conference. But Steve Yzerplan seems convinced this team is going to, or at least should, make a playoff run, and he kind of doubled down on that belief. First off, you look what the signings he made in the offseason, but now he's made another big signing about a quarter way into the season, and he has signed the 35-year-old Patrick Kane, a 16-year veteran who is a lock for the Hall of Fame. He is, if he's not the best American ever playing in the NHL, he is in the discussion, but he had his pick of suitors, and he decided to sign a 1-year, $2.75 million contract, prorated contract with the Red Wings. I think some of it playing into this is that he wants to play next to one of his favorite line mates, Alex DeBrincat, who is also having a very good year so far this year. So Kane has won 3 Stanley Cups in Chicago. He's won pretty much everything there is to win in the league. He's won an Art Ross. He's run the Hart. He's run the Ted Lindsay, a Calder, and a Conn Smythe. Pretty much Kane is, he's a legendary player, and now he's going to meet the Wings. I don't know if it's going to finish off his career. This is kind of a prove-it deal because at 35, I'm sure he feels like he has a few years left, but he's also coming off a very severe injury. He is recovering, rehabbing after hip resurfacing surgery, which has kind of a checkered history that the recovery rate on that for NHL players is on the low side. So it's kind of a question mark here. This still feels like a high reward, low risk signing for the Wings, as they have a lot of cap space anyway, and they can use another guy who can give them offense. So, obviously there is some baggage there because he was with the Blackhawks during the sexual abuse stuff that was going on there. He never spoke out about it. There's a lot of stuff under the surface with his days with the Blackhawks, but. If this hits, Greg, Kane could be all of a sudden you got a first or second line forward, scoring forward, who is a veteran of the playoff wars, and that's invaluable if this works out.
Yeah, and when I wrote about this last week, I said, look, this is I'm convinced that this is a move that had it been available last year, Steve Yzerplan would not have touched it.
Yeah,
he would not have touched it. I don't think he would have even listened to Patrick Kane's agent. I think that the fact that it's happening now at this time tells me that he and Yzerplan is finally cracking. He's finally starting to say things like, we think we're in the hunt. We think we can be in the playoffs. He's finally starting to say that now.
Yeah.
And it just feels different now when he says it. Unlike, maybe last year when they went into Ottawa and they right around the trading deadline and had those 2 horrific performances in Ottawa. But he's finally starting to say things to the press that indicates that, but he doesn't have to say those things when you make a signing like this. This is to me I said it was like laying down a gauntlet. He said, look, okay, this is a guy that we feel can help us immensely, and $2.75 million is nothing. It's you mentioned kind of a prove it deal, and it's another. Obviously it's more depth, but beyond that, it's not just a depth guy. He's not just a depth guy. He's one of the premier players in the NHL, and so to me, this is saying. This isn't saying we're going to make the playoffs, but this is saying that I think this team has enough that this guy that we're adding can be a missing piece. And don't forget, I think they've got like, I want to say $10 million under the cap that they can maneuver. So come trade deadline time this year, Yzerman can take on some salary if he wants. So keep that in your minds, because you don't know who may be available at that time. And so this to me says more about, it's about Kane for sure. Yeah. But to me, it's more about the move itself and the timing of it. And this isn't just, hey, this is like I said in my piece, this is not charity. This is not, let's just give this guy a shot because he's trying to come back from an injury. No, this is a guy that we think can really help us. We feel like we're in a position where a guy like this can really put us, is worth some wins and worth some points. And in that Atlantic Division, well, the whole East really, but the Atlantic Division, I mean, you've got to scrape and claw for those standings change almost every day. If you look at the standings, once you get past Boston, the standings change almost daily because there's so many teams that are bunched up in that group of teams below Boston that in any given day you can look at the standings. Red Wings could be fifth, or they could be third. Right, you're scraping for every single point you can get, and if a guy like Kane is worth a few wins here or there, and he could come in handy during an overtime, for example. Maybe they win a couple of overtime games that they may not have won had they not had him. Things like that. Just adding those extra points, that getting that second point on a night where maybe you wouldn't have gotten it. It's hard to quantify, but those are the kinds of things that a guy like Kane is they're hoping that he's going to bring. But to me, it's just, this is not a move that Yzerman would have made, certainly not last year, and probably no other year than this year. Yeah.
And that's a good point in that the salary cap, I'm sure, played a big part in this, because Kane is not going to sign with a bottom feeder or a team that's not going to, it's not a playoff contender. And how many playoff contenders have a serious amount of cap space? You can probably count them all less than, on a couple fingers, to be honest with you. So the Wings were the obvious destination for him. And then you factor in Brenkat, who he's had some great seasons with. It was like almost a no-brainer for both sides. What's your thoughts on all this, Nick?
I like the fact that I think it's a great acquisition, good signing, and I think it adds to the team for sure. It's low risk.
Right.
I don't know if last year he was available that Yzerman wouldn't have signed him. I'm not so sure, but who knows? That's possible. Right. I mean, I think it comes at a good time. One of the things with the Wings, a couple of things I'll point out: the last two seasons, not this year, but the year before and the one before that, they played well until about January, February, and then they just fell apart.
Yeah, right.
Last year, Yzerman got some scoring help that. It helped, but not nearly enough. And he signed scoring in the offseason. He wanted this team to score more. And they are. But some nights they get pretty damn cold with scoring. Now, I think the weakness with the team is their defense and goaltending. I don't know where, their goaltending is piecemeal. They're going, it's round robin with the three goaltenders. But that's not a long-term solution. That's this year's solution. And the way to kind of like overcome the weak defense and goaltending is to make sure that your opponent knows you're a scoring threat. So so beefing up the scoring with Patrick Kane, assuming he's the Patrick Kane this year, will do that.
Yeah. And, it's an interesting point you make about the goaltending, because Alex Lyon, who was in goal again tonight, he didn't even play this season until they played that short series in Sweden a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And now they're riding him like they're going to ride him like he's till he's put away wet, as they say. And I guess when you have three goalies, essentially, you might as well just play the hot hand. It looks like that's what the Wings are doing right now with Lyon.
Right. I mean, it's piecemeal, right? It's like
As soon as
let's
he
go to
cools
this guy
off,
now.
let's go to the next guy. Yeah.
Right. And because they don't have, that number one Vezina level goaltender that you can rely on,
Right.
and then with, the occasional backup. So
Mhm.
they just don't have that. They didn't have that last year. They didn't have that really the year before either. Their goaltenders got hammered the last couple of years. So, and until they find that person, they got to win somehow. So let's emphasize more offense. Their defense is pretty young overall, and they're kind of like, they have their bad days, especially late in games. Even this season, they kind of like would fall apart late in the game because I almost felt like a few games no lead was sacred.
Yeah.
Or safe, and so how do you prevent that? Well, if you're not a scoring threat and your defense is shaky, you're not going to be. Your lead may not be safe. So
right. Yeah, I guess it's also worth. I know we talked a lot about Dylan Larkin. Is he a true number one center, or is he more of a number two guy being asked to do too much? And he's playing like a number one center this year. He really is. And he's going through some very tough times. So he just announced this week on Instagram that he lost his child,
right.
and which is why he hadn't played. And people are asking, where's Larkin? Well, shoot, he was in mourning, for Christ's sake. But no, he scored again. He scored again tonight, and he is really. It's something. I guess now he's got better players around him. He has stepped up his game. And he is definitely playing like a number one center, which we all questioned.
You just said the magic words. He's got better players surrounding him, and that oftentimes make you look better.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're right. We were questioning that. We were all I remember even Kenny Cal was on a few years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't really come on and say it, but he kind of hinted that that Larkin may not be, a number one center on another team. But, it does help when you have a supporting cast. It really does. And now with Kane, and you mentioned DeBrincat, and, then you got those pluggers like Perron that just keep plugging along, and they drop in 20, 25 goals. You need those guys too. What I'm really looking for, though, and I guess is, now that we've kind of solve the Larkin issue. Now I'm looking at Lucas Raymond. Now I'm looking at Lucas Raymond. I want to see him take another step.
Yeah.
I feel like he's on the cusp, but not quite there yet of being a 30-goal guy. I don't know if he's a 30-goal guy because he's never done it before, but I feel like he's got the potential to do it. He's small, I get it, but I think that he's slippery enough. My frustration with him is I don't think he shoots the puck enough. That's my I think the whole team doesn't shoot the puck. They had that frustrating game in New York last week where they completely blew the last 2 minutes of the game. Malone didn't get the goalie out of the net until late. Then they had that power play, then which essentially was a 6-on-4 because they did get the goalie out finally, and they spent the last 45 seconds just passing the puck around.
Yeah.
And they took one shot, I think, finally with like 10 seconds to go. There was a face-off, and they had to win the face-off with like 6 seconds to go. The whole last 2 minutes, when you talk about clock management, you usually think about football.
Yeah.
But you can do it in hockey too. And it just was they got the goalie out late. They didn't shoot the puck on the power play. They had 6-on-4. I don't know why in the world you wouldn't just throw pucks at the net left and right and try to create some havoc, and maybe somebody can poke a rebound in. They just kept passing it around the perimeter. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was incredibly frustrating. I was screaming at the TV, shoot the puck. And everybody was looking for that perfect play. I mean, I know you got 6 skaters out there, but there are still 4 defenders. So it's still going to get clogged up sometimes. And sometimes that 6th skater isn't all that helpful.
Yeah.
And so they can be helpful if you're shooting the puck. If you shoot the puck at the net and the puck's bouncing around in the crease area, if you have that 6 players, you get an extra stick to try to tap it into the net. And they wouldn't even allow their own guys to get a rebound because they weren't shooting the puck. So that's the whole a team thing. But I think Raymond, I'm now looking at him to see just really how good he is.
Yeah, exactly. Is he capable of being that scoring forward they desperately need, or is he just going to be another third line role guy?
Right, exactly.
And that the jury's still the talent's there. It's just up to him if he actually can pull it off. But again, though, they're playing some fun, entertaining hockey. It looks like they're going to be playing late season important games for the first time in a very long time. And I'm just looking forward to it because it's been it's been far too long this team's been out of the playoffs. I am ready for a damn playoff game, period, in this goddamn town. And I want the Lions and the Wings to give it to us because how long has it been since they're in a playoff game, period? From we're talking, 2017? 2016?
I think the 2019 Pistons made it Blake Griffin's year.
Oh, was that 2019? Feels like about 10 years ago at this point.
It's 40. I mean, that's more than 4 years ago. I mean, that's a long time.
Right.
But anything you'd like to add, Nick?
I'm kind of with you, though. I'm looking forward to watching the Wings. The worst thing to watch is when a team is just kind of crashing and burning, or when they've declared a rebuild, and I have to watch a rebuilding team. Because they're not playing for anything. Yeah. Rebuilding teams aren't playing for anything at all.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that Yzerman's like, okay, we're going to keep advancing. You guys even when they were sort of still rebuilding, he's like, you guys need to compete.
Yeah.
You guys need to play to win. And that's why we latch on to the Wings. And quite honestly, they're out of all of our Detroit franchises, they're the cream of the crop in Detroit. They've been the best organization.
They're overall. The gold standard when it comes
They are.
Yeah, well, when it comes to, especially historically over the past 3 decades, definitely.
Well, it just goes to, speaking of the rebuild, look at Chicago. Okay, now everybody was so happy in Chicago. Oh, they got Connor Bedard, number 1 overall pick. A lot of the other teams were upset because the Blackhawks were idiots off the ice. Yeah. And why should they be rewarded? But so they get Bedard, and everybody's excited. They're 7-16.
Yeah,
I mean, it takes. I mean, Bedard's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but it still takes a lot more than just inserting a number 1 overall pick to your lineup to turn your fortunes around, So, they're 7-16, and I don't know how much talent they've got on the farm or what's going on over there, but that's a bad record, even after having drafted the number 1 overall pick. So it takes more than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at Edmonton. Maybe the best player in the world, and they're under 500 at 9-12 or whatever the hell it is, and they'll be lucky, and they're struggling to win, even make it. They've been struggling to win playoff series, may not even make it this year. You're right. It's hockey is a weird animal when it comes to that kind of stuff. But but with Nick talking about the will to win and entertaining. That's kind of a segue into the team that's the polar opposite of that right now. As we mentioned earlier, Greg wrote about it on his Substack this week, and that would be the Detroit Pistons. Because in my show notes, I used a little bit of hyperbole and just said, will the Pistons ever win another game? Obviously, they probably will, but they've been historically bad. This probably is the rock bottom of the Troy Weaver era, as the Pistons are in midst of a team record, the single season 17-game losing streak. They own the NBA's worst record of 2-18. If we go back to last season, going back to February 12th through this past Saturday when they lost to the Cavs, the Pistons are 4-41. They have less wins than the damn Lions over a time frame here. Over an 82-game season, that's a 7-win pace. That would be the worst mark in NBA history. I mean, worse than some of those infamous 76ers teams. Despite the horrific start, it's being reported that team owner Tom Gores, when he's paying, I don't even know if he's paying attention at this point, but the quote is, he's reluctant to hit the panic button. I don't know. What are you going to do anyway if you fire the GM? That's the question. Do you want Troy Weaver to be handling the trade deadline at this point? That's the big question. But obviously the fan base, again, here we are talking about fan bases who are absolutely livid, deservedly so in the Pistons case, because we've been watching essentially shit basketball since 2010. And they want heads, specifically Weavers, to roll. But it's starting to look like if anything happens, it's not going to happen until the offseason. And even then, there's no guarantee. So I don't know what to make of the Pistons right now, other than they're playing And that's the thing. I bought into Troy Weaver. I was excited by some of the moves he was making over the past couple of years. But now they just seem to be stuck on this rebuild treadmill where I don't know where the room for improvement is.
I would say they've been getting worse.
Yeah.
since Weaver's been here. It's literally gotten worse. I thought, how could you get worse than last year? But apparently he said, hold my beer.
Yeah. And you're talking about a 34-year-old three-point shooting forward is your savior. Now they're saying, oh, he's going to cure the spacing issues. But what does that say about the rest of the team that you're so definitely, you have to lean so much on a Bojan Bogdanovic? That if anything, that seems to be insulting to the rest of the players on that team, is that they need a 34-year-old three-point shooter to put the team on his shoulders to win a game, which I find kind of ridiculous.
Okay, first let's go back to what you said a few seconds ago about Gore's or somebody being quoted as saying that the Pistons are not going to hit the panic.
Yeah, that's what the NBA talking heads are saying right now.
Okay. Well, first of all, what does that mean? What does that mean?
And is that Arn Tellem or is that Tom Gore's?
I mean, seriously, to me, when I hear that, that's saying to me that we are just trying to buy ourselves some time. We don't know what the hell we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what hitting the panic button even means at this juncture. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Does that mean would firing Troy Weaver be considered hitting the panic button? No, I don't think so.
That'd be deserved.
Nick mentioned just a little while ago about, they're getting worse. When you're in year 4, and I said this on Twitter, mm-hmm. when you're in December, in year 4 of a rebuild, and a 2-80 season is still possible, although not likely, then something's wrong. Something has gone awry. So would firing the guy who put this mess together, is that considered hitting the panic button? When you're 4-42 in the last 46 games, and you've traded away, and your last big move was trading away a guy, Saddiq Bey, and then getting a guy, James Wiseman, which is a horrific exchange of talent and fit and everything else. And that's part of your. That's what started the 4-42 was after they made that trade. Right. Mm-hmm. When you're 4-42, and you're in year 4 of the rebuild, I don't think firing the GM is hitting the panic button. Now, the thing that you mentioned, Tellem, or somebody said Tellem's name.
Yeah, I just did.
The thing that I did not know, and I was just absolutely flabbergasted to find this out, was that Tellem's son and Troy Weaver's son are both playing significant roles in the Pistons front office. I'm not talking about an intern or anything. No, they are playing significant roles. And they both look like they're just right out of college. Both playing significant roles in the Pistons front office, which I didn't know that. And shame on me for not knowing it, but I found that out.
I had no idea either.
And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Now, I was bad enough that Tellem is still there and Stefanski's still there. I didn't know that the kids were involved in this mess. This whole thing is really, now it's starting to get really now it's becoming a real circus now when you throw that into the mix. The Pistons, I don't know what they mean when they say we're not going to hit the panic button. I don't know what that means. I mean, to me, the panic button move would be firing the coach. They're not going to do that. I understand that. That's not going to happen. I get it. But anything else beyond firing Monty Williams, to me, is not a panic move.
Only thing I would think would be panic is starting making trades.
I think Pistons fans should be panicked if they don't do anything. That's when the panic should set in. Yeah. If they don't do anything, that's when I would get panicked if I was a fan, because that tells me if you're going to let this go on for how long are you going to let it go on? When does it become appropriate to make a panic move? Then what does the record have to be? 3-50 before you do something and say, well, maybe this isn't working out. This whole panic move thing, I don't know what that even means. I think that's an insult. That's an insult to Pistons fans and everybody to say, why don't I get the panic? But this is not year 1. This is not it's year 1 of Monty, yes, but it's not year 1 of Troy. It's year 4 of Troy, okay, and it's year 12 of Gore's or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So to say we're not going to hit the panic button when you've lost 42 of the last 46 games with no victory, I hate to tell you, I hate to break the news. There's no win in sight on that schedule. No win in sight. There is no victory in sight until maybe January. Unless they I mean, I know anybody can beat anybody on any given night. I get that. But the Pistons have continually lost games to teams, guys, who have been missing their star players, either because they're out because of injury. There was the game against Denver where the coach got ejected and their all world player got ejected.
Yeah, Jokic was
Jokic
yeah.
and they played. There's a lot of there's been several. City Hall would know more than I would, but there were several games where the Pistons have played their opponents where the opponent has been missing a player, a key player, and it hasn't mattered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hell, they lost to the Wizards. I keep wanting to call them the Bullets.
Well, they lost to San Antonio too, didn't they? If I remember right.
Did they play this year?
I'm almost. I don't. All I know is San Antonio is not much better than them. But the thing is, San Antonio is just starting their rebuild, and they actually have a true number one core piece to build around.
Right. Well, the Wizards were a 2-win team at the same time the Pistons were.
Maybe that's
and they got the shit beat out of them by 20 points.
I'm sorry, that's the game I'm thinking of, the Wizards game. Yeah, because they only had 2 wins at the time as well, and they blew the Pistons out.
Yes.
Yeah. How is that possible? You know, I'm going to admit that I watched a lot of games last season, and they kind of finally broke me this season. But
I actually canceled my league pass. I canceled NBA League Pass. I don't because I get used YouTube TV, so I don't get the Bally Sports. I don't get the Bally Sports on part of my package. So I was doing the VPN and NBA League Pass to watch the Pistons, and I'm like, I'm paying $15 a month plus a VPN to watch this? No. So if I really feel an urge, I'll just pirate the goddamn game. But I don't really feel an urge to watch this team flail about. And that's the thing, is that no one can shoot the goddamn ball.
No, you know what happens with them? So I used to also be tough on it's like, what is Dwayne Casey doing? But now I changed my mind.
Yeah.
I think he was trying his best to polish a massive turd.
Yeah.
Last year they would, in some quarter, go down 30 points, and they would end up losing by anywhere from 20 to 30 points in the end of the game. So, but they looked like throughout that whole game, like they were trying to play. They're lousy shooters, honestly. And when they get behind, they panic and they start chucking threes, and they're worse at threes than they are at twos. And they just lose. They don't rebound, and they just chuck a three, miss it, and the other team goes and scores points. This year, when they may keep up with the team for a while, but then they just completely fall to pieces, and they look like their confidence is shattered.
How about that Indiana game? How about that Indiana game, Nick? I've never seen an NBA game get that out of hand that quickly. They just
gave up.
It was ridiculous.
You know, and it's different. Let me go back to the Detroit Lions. They were, last year they were on the ropes, but they were 1-7, whatever it was. And, but they said, keep playing. That team played 60 minutes of football.
Right.
This basketball team is not playing 48 minutes of basketball. They literally give up, and they look like they can't do anything. And sometimes they look like worse than if you're go to a random playground and see a pickup game.
Yeah. But here's the thing that I don't understand, and I touched on it in my piece on the Pistons a couple of days ago. And when Monty Williams, I think it was after the Lakers game, said, look, we don't handle adversity very well. As soon as something happens that's negative, we all kind of see the spirit sag, whatever the words were. And I'm thinking to myself, geez, that's first of all, it's a stunning admission. Secondly, you're talking about a group of players, Stewart, Cade, Killian, and a couple others who have been there throughout for most of the rebuild. Okay, so they played together a little bit. Now, granted, Cade was out most of the year. I get it. I never heard, and to Nick's point, I never heard that kind of a thing come out of Dwayne Casey's mouth. I never heard Dwayne say, you know what, we didn't compete, or he may have been some nights where he was disappointed, but there was never this notion of, well, we don't handle adversity. Well, these are guys who have been here for 3 or 4 years. You think, if anything, they would have steeled themselves against this kind of a thing. They're so fragile mentally. And I just can't, and I mentioned a few moments ago, they're not going to fire the coach because you're not. But I wonder how much of this is coming from the coach. Now, there's a lot of, I go on Pistons Reddit a lot. Lately, I've been on Pistons Reddit a lot. And the beef there with Monty, and I didn't know this before when they hired Monty, was apparently Monty's got a reputation of, he had it in Phoenix for sure, of punishing players by not giving up minutes. Okay. Yeah. And he's also had a reputation of having a doghouse. And we're seeing, and I mentioned this as well in the piece. He's having, it's the same kind of a thing we're seeing with Jaden Ivey. It smells like it, looks like it, walks like it. It looks like the same thing. And the other thing, and City Hall mentioned it too, that he doesn't have Chris Paul. He doesn't have Chris Paul as his point guard. And everywhere Monty has won, he's had Chris Paul. He doesn't have Chris Paul anymore. But that's one thing. But I'm back to the effort thing. I'm back to this whole that Nick was talking about. I don't understand, and then so I can't help but think: is it the coach? And if it is the coach, what is it about the coach? Yeah. What is it about the coach? Does the coach have everybody dispirited like the Lions were under Patricia, where they just are so dispirited that they don't even want to play for the guy? You know, but I mentioned it. You know, I hate to keep bringing up my own writing, but. In that piece I did write, we talked about those late 70s, those late 70s, early 80s Pistons teams. The thing, okay, yeah, they lost a lot of games, no question about it. But that team was made up largely of CBA cast-offs, free agents that nobody wanted, aging veterans, and just plain not very good basketball.
Yeah, you brought up Ron Lee as your poster boy.
Okay, but those guys, I remember that. Those guys would play hard. It's almost like, because they knew that their days in the NBA were numbered, they decided they were going to make the most of it. Either try to stay in Detroit or hope another team would pick them up. These guys, and they're all young, you know, they're all very, very young guys, seem to be so dispirited. I don't know how a group of kids that are that. I know they're losing a lot. San Antonio, by the way, has lost 14 in a row. They start out 3-2, they're 3-16. Yeah. But you have a bunch of young guys like that, and Ivy, who claims to love Detroit, and the whole, these guys, mom was played for the Shock and the whole,
and really stepped up his game in the second half last year. We looked like he was really going to be a foundational piece.
I don't know what he did, and maybe he didn't do anything to bring on the ire of Monty. I don't know. But I'm starting to think, and it's been whispered throughout the NBA circles, that this Monty Ivy thing is starting to impact the rest of the roster. Yeah. And maybe that's it. I don't know, but it's really concerning, guys. It's not, the 17-game losing streak's bad enough, but when you've got a bunch of players who are just checking out mentally.
Yeah.
And
Monty's in the first year of how long is this contract?
Yeah, that's
it's not even the length. You know, like they're damned by the stupidest contract in NBA coaching is. He's a $13.5 million a year for the next 6 years. I mean, that's like insane money.
Yeah, he's making James Wiseman money. When you think about it. But yeah, it's like, do you really want to? It sounded like a good idea at the time, but now hindsight being 2020, as it usually is, was it really a good idea to essentially beg a guy to come and coach your team who turned you down until the money got so crazy he couldn't say no? I'm sure even Monty Williams probably having second thoughts now. Maybe I should have sat a year and found a better situation.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does.
And if you do blow it up, is Monty part of the blowing up, and you just have to eat that money?
Well, one of the things you kind of mentioned, Patricia. I mean, he just sucked the life out of that team.
Yeah,
right.
He had his axe to grind with Slay, and I'm sure he had other players as well. Like,
yeah.
As I like to call him, he was a football terrorist.
He was, and like, you can't fix that unless once that coach does that damage.
Yeah,
you can't fix that. I mean, I think you had something. I read your piece on Jim Leland today, and there was the emphasis was on the relationships. If you have a contentious relationship where people are in dog houses, you're playing favorites, that's a shitty situation. Look, Ivy's a young kid.
Yeah.
He runs like a deer, but he also runs into like 4 of the other team players and just chucks something up sometimes. But
let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. How many teams in the NBA win with defense?
In this era? None.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So he's emphasizing this emphasis on defense. Okay. I'm not saying don't play defense. I'm not suggesting that. But I think that, the whole makeup of the team, I mean, this is not 15 years ago. This is not where you could have big men like Wiseman and Bagley and Stewart and this isn't Dirk Nowitzki days. Okay. You have to have guys who, I mean, long guys who can slash and who can hit the 3-point shot and who are fast and who can, do all these things, are dynamic. It's not about, this isn't the 2004 Pistons, the going to work guys. You're not going to win games in today's NBA by trying to hold the other team to 80 points like the Chauncey Billups. These days, they score 80 points at halftime. You can't win like that. So this whole notion of, he doesn't play defense. That's the knock on Ivy. Well, the coach is punishing Ivy for lack of defense. Well, come on now. Really?
So he plays Killian Hayes instead, who couldn't throw the ball in the ocean if he was next to it. So, yeah, it's very frustrating. It's funny you bring that up because all these big guys that I mean, I love Stewart, but I love Stewart as your second or third big coming off the bench, is like your number 8 guy. He should not be playing 35 minutes a night like he has been. It's just not his game, because they're trying to make him into a stretch 4, but I just don't know if it's there or not. But I guess that's as they say, the Pistons were in talent acquisition mode for the last 4 years. Unfortunately, in doing so, they ended up with this hugely flawed roster with guys who can't shoot the 3-ball. They don't have any small forwards and a bunch of big men who can't shoot from deep. Unlike, Bill Laimbeer would be a better fit in this team because he could actually shoot a 3-point shot.
Right.
So, and a bunch of bigs that just don't really fit in today. Well, Duren, I love Duren as that guy in the paint, that rim defender type guy who can run the rim. But you can't surround him with guys who can't shoot. And unfortunately, about the only guys who seem to be able to who score on this team are Cunningham and Ivy. Ivy's not getting any playing time, and Cunningham's I think he's just overwhelmed at this point. So it's just an ugly mess of a roster where I don't know what the solution is right now at this point. No, Bogdanovich, he will help. Might win him a couple games throughout the season. But instead of a 15 wins, they might get 17 of him. So this is just a hugely flawed team, and I don't know where the fix is at this point unless they get. And that's the other thing. They say they win the draft lottery. Yeah, this is the wrong year to do it. There is no consensus guy this year. I don't know.
Even if they win the draft lottery, so what? One of the things in Greg's pieces on the Pistons, and I totally agree with this. Troy Weaver may, in isolation, have picked a bunch of good individuals, talented individuals, but you put them together as a team on the court, and they don't go well together.
Yeah,
they don't. Yeah. They don't play well at all. You can, and adding Bogdanovich in there he's just one more random piece. It's like looking in your junk drawer and saying, "Here, I got a team."
Yeah.
So
comparing the Pistons to the junk drawer, that's kind of fitting.
I could have used other analogies. I speak nice.
Next to the piece of tape. So
yeah, exactly. That one loose screw that you don't know where it goes. Still, and
oh God. Oh geez, yeah. I think that's a good way to end the Pistons discussion. Just comparing them to the junk drawer in the kitchen. So I'm going to ask you guys, what would you like to discuss real quick? Do you want to talk a little Tigers or you want to talk a little college football?
Well, I'm more comfortable talking about the Tigers, but
okay. Greg wins. All right.
All right, fine.
I'm sorry, Nick.
You guys sound like you wanted to talk Tigers. Like,
no. Well, you did bring up Jim Leyland, so we should bring him up because he was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame this past week. The former Tigers manager made it via the Contemporary Era Committee, one of the veterans committees. I can't even keep them all straight at this point, but Leyland managed 3,499 games over 22 seasons with 4 teams, pretty much making his name with 3 of them, the Pirates, the Marlins, the Tigers. He had an awful tenure with the Rockies for 1 year where essentially he just quit. He was burned out on baseball, but he came back and I loved him as a Tigers manager. You could complain about his strategies and stuff, but he just ran that team. You never heard any bullshit coming from the Tigers when he was running that team at all.
Right.
And plus his career started in Detroit, so it kind of made it was fitting that it ended in Detroit because he got his managerial start in the minor league system from 71 to 81. Then he went to the Pirates, and that's where he kind of made his name, made the playoffs with them. He ultimately made 3 World Series. He won 1. He pretty much helmed the best sustained era of Tigers baseball in our lifetime, which was 2006 to 2013. He won 700 games with the Tigers, won 3 straight division titles, and did lose 2 World Series. And he's been in the front office ever since he retired in 2013. I have no complaints of this. It's a kind of a lifetime achievement award, sure.
Yeah.
But if there is a guy who deserves a lifetime achievement award to put him in the Hall of Fame, I think Jim Leyland deserves it.
Oh, well, I think it's great.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, I was just going to say that I think that, and the thing that I mentioned is that there was a period of time where we thought that his managerial, you mentioned being burned out in Colorado, and it wasn't as much that as it was. He just felt like he just didn't do a good job because he underestimated how difficult it was. Manage in that ballpark, and
it ended very badly there.
And he did, and I mentioned it. He managed 22 seasons, never was fired. Managed 4 organizations, never was fired. He essentially fired some organizations. He fired the Pirates, he fired the Marlins after they sold all their assets, and he fired himself with Colorado. But he never was fired by a team. Now, the other thing too about him is that there was that period of time, like I said, where he did manage it all, but he does not get into the Hall of Fame without his years in Detroit.
Exactly.
So, that's what put him over the top. That's what, to me, that those 8 years in Detroit really kind of moved him away from the rest of the league of managers. I think that there was a lot of respect for him that he just continued to build upon. The team was always in Detroit was almost always competitive, and they made a lot of playoffs. There was a lot of really, the Comerica Park had 30,000 fans every night. The place was jumping, and he had all those dynamic players, and the owner was buying players left and right. But he was, and you mentioned it, you just said it. There was never any baloney going on.
Drama free. That team was drama free.
Whenever there was a little bit of that, i.e. Dimitri Young, they were gone. Yeah, they were gone. And it wasn't, I don't think there was any personal vendettas. It's just that if there was ever a hint of that kind of nonsense, those players were gone. Okay. Yep. And so, that is, I've seen everybody from Sean Casey to Mark DeRosa to you name it have talked glowingly, both as former players that went up against Jim Leyland in the case of DeRosa, and guys who played for Jim Leyland like Sean Casey, who just can't say enough good things about Jim Leyland, and genuine good things. And so lifetime achievement, of course it is. Yeah. He's 41 games over. He managed almost 3,500 games, and it was only 40 games over 500. So but when you took his record took a big hit in Florida in that second year. They won 54 and 108. But he does not get into the Hall of Fame without those 8 years in Detroit kind of pushing him over.
Yeah, and it's the. And he'll always go down in Detroit. Everybody always brings it up when there's some sort of, when they feel a team needs a kick in the ass, so to speak. They always bring up Jim Leyland that first month in 2006
Right.
where the Tigers essentially just pissed away a getaway day game by saying we just want to get out of town because we're going to the West Coast.
Right.
And Jim Leland lit into them, essentially saying that is not acceptable.
Right.
And that essentially right there was the blueprint for his entire tenure here, that his teams would just never quit. And there was a lot of heartbreak and a lot of shit happened. Game 163, and and you could always argue about some of his strategy and how he used players, but those teams always played hard, and that was because of Jim Leland.
No, totally agree. I don't know if you guys see this, but it makes its rounds in Twitter every so often. A video clip of Jim Leland really getting into face of Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man! Like I'll never get tired of watching that. I mean, he did not. He really told Bonds, and I don't know at what stage in Bonds' career he was in, but he's like, "Get the hell out!" because I'm running this.
Yeah, apparently he did something similar with a young Kirk Gibson in the minor leagues when Gibson was the hot shot, college football star who came into the minor leagues, and essentially. Jim Leland, who was, I think, managing, at Double-A at that point, essentially told Leland, "You ain't shit, at least not here." And he's always been that way. And what is with Tigers having great managers who always look like they were 75 years old?
Sparky was born 75 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I've seen some pictures of Jim Leland as a young man. I was like, who is that man? He always looked like he does right now at age 78. With the full white mustache and the cigarette in his hand.
Right.
Oh my God. But yeah, this is I have no issues with, obviously you could make an argument Lou Piniella probably should have made it as well, and he likely will. But yeah, this I guess the next question is, does Jim Leland's name end up on the wall? Probably it should, if he's in the Hall of Fame. He should go up there next to Sparky Anderson.
I think so too. I mean, it was great having him as a manager. Yeah. And he knew how to manage star players. That's the other thing too.
Oh, and we really got that comparison after we saw Brad Ausmus come to town, who had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah. I guess that Ivy League diploma that they were hyping really didn't come in handy.
Yeah, but he was a very handsome man. You got to give him that. So.
Yeah, fine. Let him go model underwear. Don't let him model. Don't let him run a baseball team.
All right. And speaking of managers, we need to bring up AJ Hinch, who was that was announced yesterday that president of baseball operations. That is right now the winter meetings, and Scott Harris announced that he's pretty damn happy with his manager because they announced that AJ Hinch has agreed to a long-term contract extension. Details of the deal were not disclosed. The Tigers have not been doing it for a very long time. But the reports were Hinch, when he was hired, was signed through at least 2025. So apparently this new deal is going to take him well past that. And to be honest, I have no problems with keeping AJ Hinch around. He is after seeing what this team was like with Brad Ausmus and Ron Gardenhire, Ausmus didn't know what he was doing, and I think Gardenhire was just at the end of his career and was getting paid, and he was a worse Ralph Houck essentially. AJ Hinch runs. I have no problem with AJ Hinch staying the manager's team for long term. I mean, he's proved he can handle a great team. Cheating scandal taken out of it, he was he handled the Astros teams very well, won a World Series. And I always give AJ Hinch credit for this. Out of all the people who were involved in what went down in Houston, who was the only guy that really got punished? AJ Hinch. Yeah. He's the one who fell on the sword. All the players got off scot-free. His GM just, got fired, and he went on to sell condos, I believe. Hinch is the only guy who essentially served his time and was given a second chance, and he's making the most of it. I'm thrilled to see Hinch stay as the Tigers manager.
And I'll say this too: people probably don't want to hear it. It's an Al Avila choice to bring in Hinch. So he's a great manager. I mean, honestly, the Tigers teams the last 3 years have been pretty lousy, but I think he's got them to overachieve with what he was given. I think that team overachieved.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that they overachieved in 2021, which was kind of maybe a curse more than a blessing because it set up expectations in 2022. But I can't believe, to be honest with you guys, I can't believe this team this year won 78 games. Honest to God, that's amazing to me. I can't. I figured they were going to be pushing 100 losses, and I wouldn't have been mad. And if they did, I wouldn't have been mad at Hinch at all.
Especially with all the injuries they had, especially the pitching staff. Yeah,
I just thought that was the talent that they had. They were about a 95 loss team, and and I would have been mad if they lost 95 games, because I would have been expecting that. But to win 78 and finish in second, I know it's a crappy division, but still finish second place.
Yeah. In a weak division, I could easily see them finishing 500, and actually 500 might. And
I don't know how much. I don't know how much credit. Yeah, I don't know how much credit. Well, yeah, they could. I don't know how much credit Hinch gets for Torkelson's revival. But Torkelson, I think I wrote a column sometime middle of the year. I say, some people are calling him a bust. Well, please be patient. And he had a phenomenal second half of the year, and I don't know how much credit you give to Hinch for that. But you were talking, Al, a few minutes ago, or somebody was talking about how Jim Leyland was able to manage the star players, and you also have to be able to manage the young kids who are, you come to an MLB with you're a 1-1 overall, a 1-1. That's there's a lot of burden that's placed on you, and if you get off the wrong foot, which Torkelson did, that's a tough one for a manager to finagle, because it's then you decide, well, okay, when do we send him down? Do we send him down? Do I move him up and down the lineup? Do I talk to him one day and not talk to him the next day? When a kid's going through something like that with all those expectations, and everybody's calling him a bust, and the team is losing, and that's when it could really go south. And to somebody's credit, and I don't know if it's Hinch or not, Torkelson got his act together and was a whole different ball player after the All-Star break. A completely different player. The overall numbers weren't great, but they were a lot better than we thought they were going to be around July. So somebody gets credit for that.
Yeah. Well, I think about what he's done over the last 3 years with this awful pitching staff.
Right.
I mean, he's to string 78 victories out of a piecemeal rotate. I don't even know if you call it a rotation. I mean, I think it's literally just rotating a bunch of relievers.
Yeah. No Mize, no Turnbull, Matt Manning for maybe half a season, Skubal for about half a season. Yeah, it really is. The term patchwork fits the Tiger starting rotation perfectly. It really does.
I mean, totally. It's who are these guys? And, this is not something you go forward with every single year, but that same group of guys. But, he got about as much as you could get out of this bunch. I can't see you getting that much more out of these guys than he did.
Exactly.
So,
all right. So we're all in agreement. AJ Hinch for president. So, all right. Before we start wrapping things up, let's touch on college football real quick. I know we're getting low on time because we know Michigan is in the playoffs. They're the number 1 seed, but there's, I guess I'll ask you guys a couple things because we kind of discussed this over the weekend. First off, is Jim Harbaugh coaching Michigan next September?
Quite possibly.
You think so?
I think so.
What about you, Greg?
Not if they win the whole thing. Not if they win the whole thing. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's the Bears, I'm hearing, are making a big push for him. We'll make a big push for him after the season. Yeah. And if they win everything, Michigan, why would he stay? I'm telling you, he want to be the first guy, the only guy to win a national championship and a Super Bowl. Not that he could do it with Chicago necessarily, but that once he's got the national championship thing out of the way,
he'd be the second, I believe, because you would.
Really?
Yeah, Pete Carroll. He won with, didn't he?
Oh, Pete Carroll.
No, he'd be the third.
Who would be the other one then?
You would not be thinking of this guy. Barry Switzer.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah, I hardly.
Wow. I'm shame on me.
Yeah, well, yeah, Barry Switzer, who was essentially, if there was ever a figurehead head coach,
but
he was still the head coach. You're right, but yeah, he won with Oklahoma and he won with the Cowboys. You are right.
Well, wait a minute.
That's right.
Then,
Carroll did Carroll win, or did he finish second to Texas that year? With
I thought he
USC.
won at least one national.
I thought he
championship.
did. He won with the Reggie Bush era team.
What about,
regardless of all that,
what about Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah, I think he won with Miami, didn't he? Yeah.
I think so.
Anyway,
Boy, I got that one wrong.
Yeah, but regardless of all that,
I got that one wrong.
Harbaugh, you're right about that though. Harbaugh would love to make football history like that. He is that kind of football nerd, where he'd want to say, "I want to win a national championship."
It's still an exclusive group, yeah.
A very exclusive group, yeah. A Hall of Fame group. What do you think?
I do think eventually he goes back to the NFL,
yeah.
And my guess is if he does win a championship in college, there's really strong incentive to go back to the NFL.
Yeah, especially now. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I guess my prediction that he'll be back might also suggest I'm saying they're not going to win the championship this year too.
I guess the other thing that would help maybe convince him that he's ready to move on, that he has righted the Michigan ship completely, is that I would not be surprised if he believes he already has his heir apparent in Shermaine Moore as the next head coach of Michigan. Because I know there's been talk, I've seen the rumors that if Harbaugh did get that contract extension that's just been rumored, who knows if he'll be signed if he wants to go to the NFL, is that part of that deal would be his second in command would be essentially the head coach in waiting. So we'll see what happens. But the other question for you guys regarding college football: did Alabama deserve to be the number 4 seed in the playoffs, or did FSU get screwed? But can both things be true?
I think both things can be true.
Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got, it's not the first time.
Next year, I think they're going to 12 teams, aren't they?
I'm sorry, what's that?
No, I think aren't they going to 12 teams next year?
Yeah, next year they're going to 12 teams. Where we're probably arguing about Penn State and in Mississippi instead of Florida State and Alabama. But I just feel so bad for those kids at Florida State. Just because, essentially, what? I'm old. So, the first thing that came to mind when they said, well, you don't have your starting quarterback, so you're not going to the playoffs, even though you're undefeated. First thing I thought of was Dennis Franklin at the University of Michigan. When Michigan was going to go to the Rose Bowl, I believe he got knocked out for the season in that, was it the 10-10 tie game against Ohio State? And they ended up tying for first place, and there was a vote of athletic directors as to who went to go to the Rose Bowl, and they picked Ohio State because Dennis Franklin couldn't play, and this has that kind of vibes from it. But now it's just been so amplified because of the stakes, because now we're talking about a national championship playoff, and I just felt so bad for those. They did everything, and then you saw that tweet from the quarterback who said, I wish I would have got hurt earlier in the year so they could have proved how good of a team they were without me. That's a dagger in the back of the committee. So, and then the committee was also kind of talking out of both sides of their mouths, where they said, where they were saying, just win it out. Just win all your games, everything, and you'll be fine. They did, and things weren't fine. Yet they put in Liberty, which it's a problematic school all on its own anyway. They put Liberty into the New Year's 6 games as the group of 5 representative. Because why? Because they won all their games, even though they had the worst schedule in all of college football. So the hypocrisy just screams out that way, let alone the fact if the quarterback, missing their quarterback, hurt Florida State so much, how come they only dropped to 5? Why didn't they drop to 8? Or something like that. It's just I don't know. It's just, I'm just glad they're going to 12 teams. A 2-team playoff has always been dumb. It's always they should either have like a 12 or 16 team playoff, or we just go back to where it was before, where every conference has a bowl tie-in and we just vote on it, and then we can argue about it all year long. But
I kind of miss the days of the mythical national championship.
Yeah, exactly. Then we can just argue about it. And by the way, Greg, the EMU got into a bowl game again, didn't they? Our friend Chris Creighton?
Yeah, they got to a bowl. They're going to play South Alabama. two 6-6 teams. But hey, I think that's the third year in a row that Chris's team, which was a disappointment this year. They had some problems at quarterback.
Yeah.
Their offense wasn't very good. They lost some stinkers, but they're in another bowl game for them 3 years in a row. So congratulations to them.
He has made them a perennial bowl team, and no one has ever been able to do that at Eastern Michigan ever before. No. It says volume. It says
volumes that a 6-6 season now is considered a disappointment.
Eastern, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and the fact that he's starting to look more and more like a lifer there, because at this point, what is there for him to prove at Eastern Michigan at this point to not move up to a bigger school? But he always seems, at this point he's not going to get he's not going to end up like at the University of Minnesota like a certain coach who rows the boat, who made his name in the MAC. So but I say we have to give a shout out to Chris Creighton for making another bowl game, because that's really probably talking to him last year. That's where it kind of really drove home to me just how important the bowl system is, the old school bowl system is, for players on schools like that. Who it is really an important reward for those guys. It's not always about just making it to the national title game. It's for these guys to be able to play in a bowl game, which for a lot of them is literally the pinnacle of their football career. So I say give a shout out to Chris Creighton and EMU.
We'll try to bring Coach in on the show. After the season's over, maybe when it's not so busy.
Exactly.
I'm in January. We can talk about the season, and he's always been a friend of the show, and I'm sure he'll come on.
All right. With that, I think it's time to put a bow on this puppy. So, who's your jerk of the week? I'll let you go first, Nick. Jerk of the week.
I'm actually gonna go with the Pistons ownership and front office. I don't think that I'm with Greg. Like, what does a panic mean?
Yeah,
they're not panicking. They've sucked for a long time. At what point do you actually do something different? And with a losing streak of 17 games and the pitiful way that this team just kind of crumbles, you're the owner or you're in charge of the front office. You step in and you say something. You don't just sit there and watch it happen like you're just watching something on TV. And I may or may not regret this. Sometimes I do, but if you're the owner of the team, at some point you got to step in and say something, even to the public, because those are the people who are going to come or not come to your games, are not going to watch you on TV. And, you still need a fan base. You need a following. You need people to want to watch your games. And they look like they don't give a crap. So, none of these guys are showing any leadership in this. So they're my jerk of the week: Troy Weaver and Tom Goris.
All right, no arguments from me. That's for damn sure. I'm all for raking those Pistons over the coals again and again the way they're playing right now. Greg, who's your jerk of the week?
Well, low hanging fruit. It's always easy to pluck a media member off of the tree and make him your jerk of the week. But Carlos Maneras came out with a piece that said that Dan Campbell is going to be the next Hall of Fame coach in Detroit. And and like Nick said, look, can he get to 500 first? I mean, my God, he was writing the piece because Leland just became got in the Hall of Fame. And so for some reason, Maneras saw fit to speculate who the next, as if we care, who the next coach or manager in Detroit is going to be that's going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he picked Campbell, and he tried to, talk about the culture and all he's got this aura about him and whatever. I mean, let's pump the brakes a little bit on, first of all, if he ever made it in the Hall of Fame, it would be 30, 40 years from now. Okay. Yeah. And he'd have to coach for 15 or 20 years at least. So come on now. Hall of Fame, you know how many coaches are in the football Hall of Fame? Not very many. Not as many as you think.
Yeah.
You get past Hallis and Parcells and
Shula and
the pickings get awfully slim.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's mine.
Yeah, well, you guys were wanted to have you were talking about on Twitter where you're going to have the award called the Russy, which was for the worst GM in Detroit, in Detroit in honor of Russ Thomas. Maybe we should start calling this award the Carlos.
Maybe.
Because he's come up more than once when it comes to our jerk of the week, to say the very least. But yeah, I saw that headline and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" I didn't even read the article because I knew right. I didn't even need to see the byline to know it was Carlos Monarez. So,
Right.
Oh God,
Yeah.
I can't stand him. Oh, all right. I guess it's my turn. My jerk of the week. I'm going to go with. I'm going to stay with the college football theme, and go with Kirk Herbstreit of ESPN. Herbie, as they like to call him, the ex-Ohio State quarterback who's now calls the big games of ESPN as part of the college game day. Well, during the college football playoff selection show, Herbstreit said, "I think the committee did a great job. I tip my cap to them as well in regard to essentially making 3 no-brainer picks and then elevating Alabama." Unfortunately, if you go, people, as they are wont to do, went back and poked through his Twitter and found a tweet from Herbstreit from October, which said, "Why such sensitivity from Florida State fans? If you win out, you'll be in the top 4 regardless. Who cares if it's 1 or 2? Goal is to finish in the top 4. Well, that's exactly what they did, and they did not finish in the top 4. So essentially, just like the college football playoff committee, Herbstreit was speaking out of both sides of his mouth. But again, I should not be surprised considering, he's a paid employee of ESPN. ESPN, I hate to be the conspiracy here because I think most conspiracy theories are bullshit, but I think there is at least something to be said that ESPN was pushing for an SEC team to be in the playoff because obviously ESPN is heavily in bed with the SEC contract-wise, considering they're going to carry all their games starting next year. Anyway, you can say that of a lot of the media members when it came to this college football playoff thing, where they're defending moving up Alabama and say, well, yeah, Florida State. I think the best comment I saw about that I watched some of it till I got disgusted, because the game started as well, because the Lions game was starting, was Booger McFarland said, there is more than one way to win a damn game. It's not, they're undefeated, and you shouldn't be getting into the playoff on style points. Essentially, that's what they did. They put the 4 teams are essentially in a style points. It's an invitational, not a playoff. So my jerk of the week, though, Kirk Herbstreit and the college football playoff committee, because for Florida State, I'll just say that. All right, let's get the hell out of here because I know we're well past time. We need to get out of here. So, Greg, if you get out the thank yous and our social media stuff and all that fun thing.
Yeah, we'll see on December the 19th. Not sure if we'll have a guest or not, but that's our next scheduled recording.
A Christmas episode, yes.
Christmas episode.
Yeah.
Please read me my Greg Eno Substack, gregeno.substack.com. I'll be running, like I said, a contest pretty soon for a book giveaway. So subscribe. If you subscribe, you're automatically entered into the contest.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, of course, thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this nonsense every other week. And you can follow us on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno. And I'll let Nick do his little plugs.
Nick, what would you like to add?
Right on. Well, you can probably the only place where I'm haunting on social media is on Twitter, and you can look me up at Nick Milanovich. Usually I'm there talking with the likes of Greg and a bunch of other Detroit sports fans, and we're going back and forth, reminiscing. What do you call it? It's kind of group therapy for our Detroit Lions trauma over the decades, and Tigers, and now the Pistons. And yeah,
I want to know more about the Russy. That's what I want to know more about. So,
do you want me to explain it?
Yeah, why don't you before we wrap up? Sure.
Okay, so that came about from a Twitter discussion yesterday. We call it the Russ Thomas Award, and it was inspired by the Darwin Awards. And if you know what the Darwin Awards, it's a person wins the Darwin Award by doing something so incredibly stupid that they I guarantee that they do not pass on their genes to anybody else. So despite maybe popular conception that you have to die for the Darwin Awards, which would actually get you in there, of course, but you just basically have to be castrated. I think that's good enough, something of that sort. So we thought, why not? Like a front office and an owner could do so poorly to run a team that it basically castrates them, and they could for years just flounder in quote unquote rebuild mode, like the Lions have done for 60 years. So, and also the discussion on Troy Weaver and Tom Gores kind of.
Yeah, that might be the title of the podcast. We just call this the Russy Awards. So
yeah,
all right,
award. So
yeah, exactly. All right, I will add, if you obviously please like, share, and subscribe. Pass the word on the podcast if you like what you hear. We are on all available podcast outlets, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer. Theneatrix.net is the homepage where the links to all of this stuff can be found, including Greg's Substack and the guy's social media. And for what it's worth, I have kind of dipped my toe back into social media. I have a Blue Sky account. It's Albeat at Blue Sky, so we'll see if I do anything with it or not. But I've been waiting forever for the invite, because it's still, I guess, a closed beta kind of thing right now. But I know a lot of Twitter expats are ending up there. So Albeat at Blue Sky. All right, with that, let's get the hell out of here, because I'm sure Greg's got a cold drink waiting for him. It's probably dinner time out in the West Coast. So with that, yeah, exactly. And I got a podcast to edit. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, as Greg said, on the 19th. Follow our social media for any updates as to what we might be talking about. So until that time, when we'll have a Christmas toddy, I guess, along with all that. This is Al Beaton saying good evening, good luck, and aloha, along with Nick Milanovich.
Ciao, guys.
And Greg Eno.
Ciao, Italy. We'll see you in 2 weeks.